Hello. The Divine Code reading for December 15th, pages 381 and 382. We are in the chapter Details and Examples of the Prohibition of Murder. Topic number 6. If one intended to kill or send a mercenary to kill, but the murder was not accomplished, regardless of how it was prevented, then the would-be murderer is not liable for capital punishment in court, since he did not actually murder. Still, he is liable to punishment from God for his evil intentions. And earlier in this book, see the unit of Foundations of the Faith, 9:5. That's in the Divine Code, or Hakim to Genesis 20, verse 6. This punishment is lesser than death by divine agency, since there was actually no murder. So in the case where the person is indirectly involved in murder, there is it's not handled by an earthly court. Rather, it's in the hands of, it's not obligated to be handled by an earthly court, but it's in the hands of heaven to punish the person. If it's indirect murder, then the punishment by the hand of heaven would be a death sentence for the person, in a spirit that will be handled by the hand of heaven. And if it's not, the murder did not occur, then some other punishment would be liable to the person by the hand of heaven. Topic number 7. What is the meaning of the statement in Genesis 9:5? Of every beast I will demand it. This refers to one who places a victim unbound in front of a lion or other wild animal in order that the animal will kill him. The verse implies that a person who does so is liable to punishment from God, but not to capital punishment by a court of law. As we see in Rambam, the Laws of Murderers 2:3. However, Rambam writes in the Laws of Kings 9:4 that if a Gentile bound his victim and placed him in front of the lion and killed him, this is murder that is liable to capital punishment, and as explained above, that a Gentile is liable for indirect murder. The apparent contradiction between these two situations is noted in Minhat Chinuch Commandment 34. It appears that Rambam chose the words Laws of Murderers 2:3. Of every beast I will demand it. This refers to one who places a person before a wild animal so it will tear him, specifically in reference to Gentiles. Rambam's wording indicates that the wild animal forcibly overpowers the victim and kills the person, meaning the victim is not bound, but he has the possibility to escape. The perpetrator of this death is liable to punishment by God, but not to capital punishment by a court of law. In contrast, if the victim is bound and cannot escape from the wild animal, it is considered as if the perpetrator directly caused the death and therefore is liable to capital punishment in a court of law. So, in the area of indirect murder, if the person does something physically or compels the situation to an extent that the victim cannot get out. The person is bound up, and a wild animal, he's placed in front of a wild animal who's bound up, he can't get out. The person that did that would be liable in a court. Or, that would be because the person put the effort into binding the person. That's considered putting the power into it. But the person is free to move about, and he could theoretically escape the animal if he's fleet-footed, if he can climb out of the situation, whatever it is, if he has the ability to escape, then it would be putting the person in a dangerous situation, but it would not be it would not be obligated for a court to punish the person, and it would be left in the hands of heaven to punish the person. This is the distinction here, referring to the Torah law. What is the difference between this case and the one in topic 2, in which one who causes another to die through indirect means is liable for capital punishment? Under the Noahide Code, a Gentile would not be liable for capital punishment for causing a person's death in this way unless he placed the victim in front of the wild animal in such a way that the victim has no means of escape, such as if he bound the victim and left him in front of the lion. Thereby, these actions are directly and inadvertently leading to the victim's death. However, if the victim was able to attempt escape, and the animal nevertheless caught and killed him, the perpetrator is only liable to be punished by God. So if it's a reckless situation, such as the whole thing about the shield, if the guy had the ability to protect himself, if he should have been able to protect himself with the spear with the shield, then he should have he would have been, the person who threw the spear would not be directly in a murderer. But if the person who in a similar way, the person who places the person near the animal, but the victim has the opportunity to escape, then there would not be a direct action involved, and therefore the person would not be punished by the court. He would be punished by the hand of heaven, because God needs to be able to sort out the complexities of such a case. Likewise, one who places the mouth of a venomous snake on a victim, so the snake bites and kills him, is considered to have directly caused the death. See Rambam, The Laws of Murderers, 3:10, and Keshnef Mishnah there, is equivalent to binding a victim before the lion. So if the person takes the head of a snake, places it on the victim, and the snake is of course going to bite the victim at that point. It's assumed by the scenario that the snake is going to kill the victim. Then it's considered a direct act. But if the victim was only placed in the vicinity of the snake and he had means of escape, the perpetrator is only liable to punishment from God if the victim is killed. In any case where the victim is able to escape death, such as if a person pushed a victim into the sea, in an area, see Rambam, The Laws of Murderers, 3:9, in an area where he would be able to swim to land and survive, but instead he drowned. The perpetrator is only liable for punishment from God, but not capital punishment from a court of law. And some of these areas, whether a person is fleet-footed enough to escape the wild animal or the snake, or is a good enough swimmer to get to shore, it varies from person to person and situations, and whether or not the person felt healthy that morning. There's a lot of variables involved. So how a court would actually judge whether the person was, how many feet, how many yards away from the shoreline, and is there a riptide involved? I mean, there's how a court would be able to judge this, I'm not sure. And I think it's in cases where it's a clear this way or that way is where we're able to make these distinctions. And in cases where it's not clear, there would have to be standards established for these cases in order to make these distinctions. In any case, even if it's something that should be direct murder and the court doesn't handle it because the court has standards, God is still going to handle it. We trust that heaven will handle the situation in cases where maybe the court should have gone one way, but they went the other way. The same law applies to a killer deliberately placed, if a killer deliberately placed poison before the person, so this unaware victim would drink it and die. Even if the killer lied to the victim saying it is normal beverage, he is exempt from execution by a court of law, but is liable for punishment from God. And if the victim dies, that would be liable for the death punishment from heaven. Because his action of setting down the poison did not cause the victim's death, rather the victim died through his own mistaken action. But if the killer poured the poison down the victim's throat, it would be a case of direct murder with liability to punishment from a court of law. And again, there's many variables. I mean, what exactly is considered pouring it down the victim's throat? If the person has a drink in front of them and someone offers a toast, a l'chaim, and there's an assumption the guy's going to drink, or if the person's very hungry and the assumption is the person's going to eat whatever's put in front of him. You know, he just came from a journey and he hasn't eaten in days, and here's some food placed in front of him. There's a story of when Israel was being exiled to Babylon, and people came to the Israelites. People that hated them came and offered them food with salt, and then offered them poison. Well, the salt forced the people to drink whatever was placed in front of them. They gave them bread with salt in it. So the people became very thirsty. Then they were going to drink whatever was placed in front of them. The drink was placed in front of them was poison, and it killed the people. That would probably be considered direct murder because it's creating a scenario where the victim really doesn't have a choice. It's compelled. If they know it's poison, they may not drink it, but they don't know it's poison. They're compelled to drink it at that point. So how we would actually parse out all these different situations of uncertainty, a court would have to really go into it to know if it is a Torah requirement to put the attacker to death, or if it should be left in the hands of heaven. And as will be seen in tomorrow's reading, in topic number 8, the court does have under the laws of dinam, not under the laws of murder, the court would not handle these kind of cases where the attacker does not attack directly the person, but does it in a roundabout way. The court is not obligated under the laws of murder, the prohibition against murder. However, the court does have requirements under the obligation to establish courts of law, to establishing a civilized society. The court does have the obligation to get involved in more than the basic law. So we will see in tomorrow's reading that the courts do extend into these areas where it's a gray area, and we'll just see how that works tomorrow. Thank you.